Good morning, Americans. I hope everybody is having a comfortable and lively morning while they're getting ready to enjoy your day. I am going to watch a little bit of Gary Vee. So if you feel like popping in and popping out and watching some of this, that's what I'm doing it for, is so that you have something that might be a little bit valuable in the morning. So go about your business, get ready and have a wonderful day. Do the morning routine that makes sure that you're healthy, happy, and be friendly to somebody out there. Give somebody a compliment today. Show the people that you care about today that you care about them, so that they know, and spread that love so that even more people go out there and have a wonderful day. So that being said, here's some Gary Vee.
This is funny. I didn't do it on this trip, but sometimes when I fly and I have to fill out custom forms, when it says occupation, I write firefighter. That's how I feel an entrepreneur is. You're always ready for another fire, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 9:30, you have to be ready. And I don't struggle with that because I've been practicing it my whole life, which is why I fear when people try to become entrepreneurs because it's cool now. I'm worried about that because it's very hard. Every single day, I lose. And unless you're good at that, you will not like entrepreneurship. You got your perspective. I just want to be happy. Don't you want to be happy? Brazil, how are you? Good. So I'm gonna do about 40 minutes up here. Then I'm gonna I asked them if we could do some Q&A. So we'll do some questions and then we're gonna do a fireside chat. So first of all,
YouTube probably needs to get in their commercials. So I just will say hello and good morning again. My name's Lewis, and we're going to watch this Gary Vee video. And if you have any questions, don't forget to put them in the comments. I'm watching my chat. That's the whole purpose of me doing this, is I like watching these shows because they spark some ideas of myself, and then I'll throw in a little comment here. Back to Gary Vee.
Flattered to be here. Thank you for having me. For the people in this room that don't know who I am, I was born in the Soviet Union, came to America when I was a 3-year-old child. Very tough upbringing. We were very poor when we first came to America. I lived in a 1-studio apartment with 7 of my family members. My dad worked all the time. And so it was a very rough upbringing, not a lot of entitlement, didn't have a lot of stuff. My natural state was to be an entrepreneur. Even at 6, 7 years old, I was already shoveling snow, washing people's cars, selling juice and lemonade and candy. It was always to do a hustle. Somewhere along that time in New Jersey, sports cards became a very big thing in America. Baseball cards, American football cards, and I started collecting them. And by the time I was 13, 14 years old, I was making $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a weekend as a 13-year-old child, which you can imagine feels like you're a millionaire. Eventually, my dad worked very hard and saved all his money, and
I think that's valuable to note there that, Gary Vee was making hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a week when he was 13 to 14. So it's not fair to compare ourselves to him. I didn't care about money when I was 14 years old. I guess I had a pretty comfortable life thanks to my parents. So if we compare ourselves to the people that we're learning from, I don't idolize these people, but I certainly like Gary Vee and learn a lot from him. If we compare ourselves, we're just going to feel so overwhelmed with where we're at in our own lives. I know that for sure. I don't do any comparison to Gary Vee other than that when we have ideas here at the firm And then Gary Vee's doing that the next couple days. We know we're close with some good ideas and that we're on the forefront and that we're probably working and communicating well with the community. So
he bought
don't
a small
compare
liquor
yourself.
store in New Jersey. I was forced to work in that store, and that is really where I started my real career. I fell in love with the idea of knowing that a lot of people in America collected wine, and that was what kind of connected me to my family business. The part of the story that gets interesting for this room is what happens next. Knowing that there's a lot of entrepreneurs in here, knowing there's a lot of small businesses, a lot of small business agencies, what really enables me the great flattering nature to be in this room is the fact that my entire career was based on how do I build something with not a lot of money. You know, we live in a world right now where a lot of people, and how many, by show of hands, how many people in this room are entrepreneurs and have their own business? Raise your hands. Raise it high. Thank you. So if we can keep the lights on, that'd be amazing. I love that. So for me, what's interesting about all those hands that are up is I'm older. You know, I'm 43, about to be 44 next week. And when I grew up, the idea of raising capital was extremely foreign. One of the most interesting things being an American businessman when I travel nationally, internationally, and other places of the world is everybody is so caught up with raising money for their startup. This has become an entire generation of hands in the air that think about raising capital and appeasing venture capitalists and investors, not actually building a business and not having the focus there. And to me, this is very interesting because it's led to a lot of very different behavior. For me, everything was always about how do you make money, and that's what you invest back into your business, not how do you raise capital. When I started my current company, VaynerMedia, which is an advertising agency, I started it in the conference room of another company because I had no money and I wasn't gonna raise money for the business. I was just gonna find my first client, use those dollars, and just keep reinvesting. It took longer, but longer was its strength. I think one of the most important words for me to communicate in this talk today by far is patience. I promise you, no matter what you're doing in this room, and especially as I look around this room, first of all, everyone's uncomfortably attractive, and number two, but more importantly, this is quite a young audience. And I think the reality is the thing that I spend most of my time on is trying to get people to understand that patience is a very important variable of success. And more importantly, that I believe the far majority of people in this room do not have a great relationship with time. I am fascinated by people in this room who are stressed at the ages of 18 and 22 and 25 and 29, like they're running out of time. How many people, by show of hands, are under 30 years old? So for me, as you can imagine, when I see all those hands go up, you can put your hand down. Yeah, you're good. Okay, good. When I see all those hands go up, and I know in my mind, with the way that modern medicine and technology is going, that the far majority of this room is gonna live for another 80 years, it really gets me excited / concerned when people want their business to be huge next year. The quicker you want it, the more vulnerable you are. The quicker you want it, the more vulnerable you are. And what has been very fascinating for me is even though on
You want it, the more vulnerable you are. I mean, if you have any inkling or reasons why you think that may be true or untrue, I'd love to hear them. Throw some of that in the comments. Gary made that a point, I think, because he liked the way it came out. The quicker you want it, the more vulnerable you are.
YouTube and Instagram and maybe some of the places you guys see me, maybe my energy is high, Maybe my style of communication is fast, but my business actions are extremely slow. And so what business actions that lead to slowness lead to is a couple things. One, the far majority of my career, I had no money, so I had to always look for places where you could get a lot more for less. What I look for in the digital world, this world, is organic reach. When I think about organic reach, and when I think about organic attention, as my slide says up here, I day trade attention. For me, every day I look at the data, both in the analytics and in the culture conversations, to try to figure out where should I market. I promise you one thing, my friends, no matter what you do in this audience, no matter what your ambition is, the one thing that combines all of us, whether we're starting tomorrow, whether we're an employee, whether we have a huge company or haven't even started and are starting next year, the one requirement for all of us is to have somebody's attention. Before you can sell anything, you need somebody's attention. Then what you say in the written word, in audio, or in video becomes the variable if you are successful. The reason I follow attention is if there was nobody in here right now and I was giving this talk, I would have no potential to achieve what I want. At the same token, with all of you in this room, what I talk about for the next hour and a half is the variable of my success. There are many of you here that don't know who I am. You'll leave with an opinion. There's many people who do know who I am, and you're either gonna like me more or like me less, completely predicated on the content that I put out. I spend my life in a very basic mind frame. And if you look at the politics of your country, my country, if you look at the businesses, it's all one very simple game. Do you understand where the people are and they're consuming? And do you understand how to do the written words, the audio, or the video to put in those platforms? This is how it's always been. Television, radio, print, outdoor billboards. It's always been the same game. Where is the attention? The eyes and the ears, and what is our capability to put content in it? Now, here's where it gets different. This thing is fucking crazy. This thing is unbelievably underestimated. We in this room take this for granted. The power of a phone in today's world is remarkable. The fact that every one of us are sitting here with the internet in our hands right now is actually remarkable. For somebody like me at 43 years old, when I was 28, I could not leave the office or my home and have the internet in my hand. When I was 30, you have to understand how big of a deal that is. You have to understand how quickly this is all happening. Whether it's WhatsApp or YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, the fact that these platforms sit on top of this device and they're accessible right now, the fact that there are tons of people right now with a phone recording this talk and then have the ability to post it. My friends, from Brazil to New York to London to Shanghai, the human race has not quantified how substantial this shift of the internet has become. And
I hope you agree with that because basically your business's success in the next decade or everything you do with business will be based around your ability to utilize digital marketing and essentially people's cell phones to get their attention, keep their attention, and then refocus that attention periodically onto your business and your value that you bring to the world so that people are aware of your business, so that they know, like, and trust you, so that you have the opportunity to solve their problems when their problems arise. And so that you have an intimate enough conversation going with so many different people online that they're willing to share their problems with you when those problems arise. So
tell you this, and I start my talk here today with this, because here's the real honest truth about how the game of life and definitely business is played. The quickest way to be happy in life, let alone business, is to be 100% accountable. The quickest way to be unhappy is to blame. If you really understood the last
Whoa, Gary's a libertarian.
5 to 7 minutes of what I just said, the fact that how many people here have a cell phone? Raise your hands. Good.
All right, good.
Every single person here fundamentally is not allowed to have an excuse because of the power of what's in your hand. Of course there's family dynamics. Of course there's tragedies. Of course there's government involvements. Of course there's a million reasons. But the reality is we have never lived through a time where people at scale had so much opportunity. When I do the homework on the Brazilian market and I see the cost for a YouTube ad or an Instagram ad, and I see how low it is, when I see how much still unbelievable untapped potential on LinkedIn and TikTok and other platforms are for organic reach where you have to spend no money, none, and you can get awareness, the fact that podcasting is exploding in this country and the cost to start a podcast is to just record it on your phone and upload it. The thing that I've become unbelievably fascinated by is I know in this room, the single reason whatever is not happening for you is your ability to say no before you've tried. That to me is unbelievable. What's unbelievable to me is it's as simple as this. If you are capable of writing words, recording videos on your phone, or recording your thoughts in audio on your phone, your business can grow. Your idea can be flourished. Your personal brand as an influencer, your advertising shop trying to get more customers, whatever you want to be the governor, you want to be a YouTube celebrity, the reality is the cost is zero. The mindset is the tricky part. 90% of this audience does not post as often as they should on these platforms because they worry about the judgment of their family or strangers.
Time for an ad.
Hi, I'm Mike Filsame. I'm
Hey,
the co-founder
Mike.
of Brew Funnels.
Ooh,
and
Brew
we have a
Funnels.
question for you.
You dance.
Why, in the last 60 days, I have over 75,000...
Sorry, Mike. Not good enough.
This is a very, very, very fascinating dilemma in our society.
Post
There
more
are people
content,
who are
please.
not posting. I mean, look, how many people here follow my content? Give me a sense, raise your hands. Thank you. So for the hands that went up, you know what you're gonna get from me today. I'm very consistent. I'm sure you're in your head knowing every word I'm about to say as I start a sentence. I'm incapable of talking about something I don't believe in. You know, the nuances are different. Obviously, Twitter doesn't play in this country the same way it does in the US, right? TikTok's moving quicker in Asia and the US than it is in other places. LinkedIn's acting a little bit different here. WhatsApp has higher growth here than it does in the US. There's nuanced differences, but my friends, this is not about America or Brazil, this is about human beings. In America, in Brazil, in China, people worry about their parents' opinion. In America, in Brazil, in China, people care about strangers making fun of them in the comments. In America, in Brazil, in China, the opportunity to build your business or your personal brand has never been easier. People see more people doing it and they think they're too late. The real answer.
Yeah, two things. You are not too late to the party on the internet. Only 20% of all commerce is done on the internet. And that means that in the future, you have 80% of commerce ready to move over to the internet. And it's really, like, I love what he says. I remember in the beginning, I fail a lot, he says. And then I think that we need to recognize that Gary Vee was making $1,000 a week by the time he was 13 or 14, if he wanted. He didn't do that in his wine years, you know. So when he moved over to selling wine, I think he says his salary was between $50,000 and $80,000 a year. So it wasn't chump change, but he was working hard. And remember, he did videos for every day for like 5 years before it worked. And then he figured out Google Ads and was buying it. But where was I going with that? Oh, more content, more of you talking to your following and people is what he's asking for. It's what he does to gain attention. And you know, and then he said, look, people are doing this because they're afraid to get made fun of. And it's frankly, you know, I don't think people get made fun of that fast. I do know that it took me doing at least one live video every day for a month before I finally started to get made fun of. And it actually was like a rite of passage. And now I'm coming here to say honestly and declare to the world, I have not been getting made fun of or had any nasty comments in my comment sections lately. So that means that I am not doing a good enough job sharing my messages with the world through internet video. So I'm trying to fix that. I'm trying to get better and worse at the same time.
Answer is 99% of the people in here do not have the patience and stomach to actually achieve it. They want it so fast. My friends, I did Wine Library TV on YouTube in 2007 to 2010. For 35 minutes a day, 5 days a week, I would stay up and work on Twitter for 4 or 5 hours looking for people who were talking about wine. And for 3 years every day, very little happened for me. Very little. People now start an Instagram account, post for 6 weeks, and give up because they're not getting enough followers.
Sorry.
We've become remarkably impatient. We've become remarkably entitled. And so the reality is the following. Tactically. How many people here are B2B companies? They have an agency servicing clients or something of that nature. You're in the B2B business, raise your hands. For everybody that raised your hand, you must do one of two things consistently starting tomorrow. Number one, start a podcast in your industry. You must start a podcast, go on LinkedIn,
starting a podcast,
inbox, and
put your name in the
25,
chat.
50 people and ask them to be guests on your show.
I'll DM you and we'll talk about some things for free
you must attack
that you
LinkedIn
can do
more.
to start a podcast.
I think people very much underestimate how much is happening
outline
there in this market. I did the homework, it's there. People don't see it.
Sorry.
Because not that many people are doing it, which is the reason it's straight. You must start a podcast, go on LinkedIn, go into your inbox and email 25, 50 people and ask them to be guests on your show. And number two, you must attack LinkedIn more. I think people very much underestimate how much is happening there in this market. I did the homework, it's there. People don't see it because not that many people are doing it, which is the reason it's most interesting. It's so funny when I speak at these events, people always fall into two groups. Number one, they don't want to do it because it's new and they want to see other people do it before they do it. Or number two, other people are doing it so they think they're too late, so they don't want to do it. People are split up in two places of not doing. We live in a world where everybody has a reason for no. I can't do it because of this. I don't have the money. I don't have the team. My industry doesn't want to do it. I can't. The fundamental difference in the game today is the people that say yes blindly versus the people that say no blindly. The only unique leverage you have in this room is you yourself. There's so much information now. You're not coming up with any new idea. There's nothing I say that is a new idea. People have been around too long. I'm not the first person to talk about kindness or gratitude or empathy or hard work or context. I'm really not. I'm just doing it my way, in the way, my perspective, my words on my platform. And for me, this is the real conversation today. To me, is today gonna be the conference? Is today gonna be the time that you finally understand that it is time to put it out? It is time to tell your story at scale, contextually, across all platforms. Recognizing that a lot of people did not raise their hand, and this may be the first time that a lot of you are seeing me, I'm just gonna take one more step back. I believe that what the internet is doing is eliminating the middle. It's eliminating the middle, the distribution. When you look at Uber or Amazon, or if you look at Netflix, what it's really doing is separating out the middle, and it's leaving it to one of two places: the product, the story, the service, and your ability to tell that story. I believe this is very important because this is not, even for the youngsters in this room, this is not the world we necessarily grew up with. A world where the entire...
He's going hard once again on the ability to tell your story, which is your ability to brand your company with stuff where you get to talk about, who you are as a person or as a company without going into the product or service that you sell. Because as soon as you start to talk about product or service in content like this or any other content that you put out, then you start to become just the commodity that everybody else is doing. So the difference is being able to attract attention by bringing value to the world in ways that build your brand for your company.
Middle of distribution has been commoditized because the internet has become the middle, and the focus on not just the quality of the product, but more importantly, the deep focus on the ability to communicate has never become greater.
So that's where it is. That's the ability to communicate instead of the product. So because of the internet, it's been way easier for people to sell coffee mugs. Okay. Before, you used to have to own a store or have a brick and mortar, and you had to stack up a bunch of coffee mugs so that people could come into your store. But because of the internet, the cost of doing business has gotten so low that there's a ton of people selling coffee mugs now. And now, even if you're going to do business on the internet, then what happens when once something becomes super commoditized, which what became commoditized was retail space, not the coffee mug was already a commodity being shuffled between retail spaces. Now what's become commoditized is the space that it takes to sell this, which is now the internet, which is very, very low. So once the cost to do something goes really low, the competition increases. And when the competition increases, that's where you get people selling at really, really low margins. Okay. So the cost to do business went way, way down to be able to sell coffee mugs on the internet because it was really easy for a bunch of people to do it. So a bunch of people realized that they were going to be the ones that sold the most mugs if they had the lowest margin, i.e. the lowest price. And then somebody realized that if they do this really, really, really well, that they're going to beat all those other ones that are selling on low price. And that's Amazon now offering better shipping than your little mom and pop online coffee mug sellers. So how did the internet get rid of the middle? That's how, because the internet made retail space, the ability to sell retail items like coffee mugs. It made the retail space a commodity, which brought a flood of people into it, which made margins go way down, which made Amazon able to kick everybody's butt and get rid of all of the middle. So it took away all the middle. So now the only way to sell coffee mugs is to have an interesting way about talking about coffee mugs without ever talking about coffee mugs. Because we all know coffee mugs enough. You don't have to tell me that there's, better ones and cheaper ones, that some are going to, like there's only some. This is a really nice coffee mug. It hasn't broke for a long time versus all the ones that have broke that I've bought since then. So, but it doesn't matter anymore. It's more about the ability to tell a story of a brand and bring value. Like if you can just make people laugh every time they come on, you come onto the internet, you get a huge reputation brand that every time you go live, you make people laugh. I mean, that's invaluable. That is a brand right there. And now you got people just popping on because you're live and you're bringing so much value to their world that they want to help you out. And when you sell them a coffee mug or bring up the fact that you sell coffee mugs, they buy it. That's how the internet got rid of the middle. And that's how the internet can also help you build a brand. And when you build a brand, none of the middle matters because you're at one end of it, the good end.
The ability to be a communicator in 2020 has now become disproportionately more powerful than even the quality of your product. And that may be confusing, and it's a very interesting debate, but the reality is a product.
Yeah, we already knew that. We all grew up in this age. It's the ability to tell your story and be entertaining and have a brand is more important than how good your product is, because it's just about sales and getting people to like you.
Is a subjective product. One more time, B2B who does services. Raise it high. I just want to get a sense. Higher. All of you that just raised your hands, you know what I know. Sometimes you think the product's great, but your client thinks it's shit. Other times, you kind of know that the product is shitty, but the client thinks it's great. The work is subjective based on the queen or the king on the other side who gets to decide. Your ability to be a phenomenal communicator, how many people see it, where and how, is less subjective. The content in it is subjective, but the results are there through the leads, through the results that come through it. I believe today that if you're in the business world, that the ability to be a communicator, a content producer at the height of the scale for your product has become more important than any other variable. I would rather be great at YouTube and podcasting and LinkedIn and Instagram than be great at balancing my checkbook. That I can hire an accountant for. This skill is emerging and accelerating at scale. So here's how this game breaks down for me. One, I think everybody here has to take a step back and figure out what kind of communicator are they, individually. Even if you sit here today and do not believe it is your job within the organization to communicate, eventually, especially at the age level that everybody here is, eventually this skill set will become important to you. Whether it's now, later in your career, within your family dynamics, and definitely over the next 20, 30, 40 years as communication rises in importance, not declines. Thus, my great ask, my great ambition to fly down here, 3 flights to get here and flying right back home, the reason for me to be here is very focused on the notion of, can I get 5 people? There's a lot of people here. Can I get 5 people in here to start tomorrow or Monday, if you want to take the weekend off, to start making content? The world is very simple. The world is breaking into a very simple game. Ideas.
Hey, I love what he's saying. I mean, that's why Riley and I do what we do, so we can help someday that one business that's gonna like make such a huge impact on the world. And the reason they got to do that is because we helped them get through a hump by using digital marketing. So I agree with him. You know, he's as successful as he is, and his goal is to get like 5 people to use LinkedIn.
And making. Do you have ideas? Can you make them? But it requires an incredible sense of self-awareness. I'm very passionate for many people in this room who are introverted and who would be scared to give this speech or who feel uncomfortable in front of a camera to understand that if you are a remarkable writer, there's an incredible world for you. For those who are scared to be in front of the camera because they're scared of how they look or they're just uncomfortable, that recording your ideas or what you're about in audio is an incredible time to be alive, and there's an incredible world to you. As a matter of fact, even more interesting to me, if you're somebody that likes to doodle, to draw, some of the most exciting things that I'm seeing in my content is when we're doing cartoons on LinkedIn and Instagram. That might be the way that you communicate. When you figure out how you communicate, written word, audio, video, the next part is definitely the most challenging. If you ask me why over the last 10 years I have been given the great fortune to be here, it's very simple. I spend almost all of my time and all of my content trying to bring value with no expectation in return. If you look at the content that most people and companies and organizations put out, if you look at it carefully and you dissect it, it is wildly selfish. It is either a commercial in itself or its main objective is to get you to fill out your email, your phone number, your information so that I can sell to you instead of bring you value to build a brand. I wrote a book several years ago called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And the reason I wrote it was because I was watching people on social media really struggle with the idea of bringing value. And I wanted to give them a scenario of understanding that if you're trying to sell and throw a right hook all the time, eventually the other person knows how to duck. Everybody, how many people here have done email marketing in their life? Raise your hands. Great. So for everybody who just raised your hands, I was doing email marketing in 1997, 1998, and I had 90% open rates on my email. Today, if you're in the 30s, you're a hero. Means you have a tremendous list and you're doing a great job. The reason those lists have gone from 90 to 30 is because I'm sure everybody here knows where I'm going. We've ruined email because we're spamming and selling on it at all times. That's what happens to every platform. That's exactly what we're doing on social media now. The reason social media is subtly declining and the reason the algorithms always have to change is people do not have the discipline to not self-promote. People do not have the discipline to not try to sell on every post. The other problem is when people try to pretend they're giving value, in disguise underneath, they're actually trying to sell. My friends, what's scary about the way I go about business and what I believe I see with the businesses that are most winning in the world is it's super basic. Just nobody wants to do it. It'd almost be like if I was standing up here talking about health and wellness. My friends, if you want to get into better shape, here's how you do it. Stop eating shit and work out every day. Thank you very much. See you later, Brazil. That would be the whole talk. That is no different than how I see business today. Obviously, you have to have a product and service, but the reality is very simply, the formula is as basic as it is in fitness. If you are not producing content, and when I say content, just to put this into context for everybody, next week is my birthday. I've had my team work for the last month. We've made a deck, a couple 100 pages deck. We're gonna give it away for free. It shows you how to make 60 something pieces of content in a day. The reality is the requirement of how much content that I'm looking for you to produce to achieve what about numbers that look like 30, 40, 50, 60 pieces of content a day.
So why am I doing all this? It's just for content. I'm doing it because I think Gary's awesome. And so I want to just expose him to people. If somebody pops on and watches us for 5 minutes or something, maybe they could catch a little value from him. I'm doing it because I learn when I watch this. I'm killing a couple birds with one stone. Usually I sit over in my living room and read. Well, I'm going to change my habit and I'm going to do this a little bit more often, but I still sit there and read every morning. I'm doing this because when he says some stuff, sometimes it sparks a thought that I've never had or that I have had, but I learn and practice ways of enunciating ways of verbalizing my ideas in a more effective and efficient manner. And so there's a chance that when I'm watching some of these videos and then I say something to you all, there's a chance that something's awesome. Well, lo and behold, I'm live on about 5 or 10 different channels right now, whatever they are. And every one of those lets me also download the video back onto my computer where I can cut this whole thing up and just cut it down to 5 seconds of Gary and I talking and saying something really cool or smart. And there's a piece of content that then can be repurposed and put anywhere I want.
Most of the businesses and people in here are putting out one piece of content a day on a good day. Maybe 3 a week. If you're a personal brand, you're killing it and posting 4 things a day. There is nobody that is achieving the volume. If you want to write down one word and stick it in your mirror from this whole talk, the word is volume. This is a volume warfare. When people hear volume, they hear quantity. When they hear quantity, they don't think that you can make quality. They think it's a friction between quantity and quality. I believe that the world has grossly overvalued production quality and made that quality not the story or the context of the message. And so as we have spent the last 30 to 50 years putting production value.
Hey, I'd have to agree, but everybody's going to disagree over and over and over. But if you're thinking about spending $2,000 to $10,000 on a video that you're going to then put up online somewhere, I mean, I hope you're getting a ton of traffic, and that could be very, very work. But the risk you take is that you could have spent time and $100 a video, produced 100 videos, and then posted those videos across all channels. And what you're going to get is a lot more information about what type of content people really want to see, because you can post those videos in ways that you can see the engagement and the amount of views. And then you can look at how the better performing videos are different from the other videos and make more of that kind. You don't get to do that when you produce one beautiful looking video that's all produced by somebody else who doesn't even know your business and the most important parts. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do the work to create a good video for your business. You know, you should do both, lots of them, and work to be better at communicating through that type of video. I mean, I've done hundreds of live things like this. I'm also taking a class that I bought online that is about doing videos, making videos that sell. And I'm going to do a bunch of videos like that to work to sell my products and services.
You on a pedestal as quality, we have put ourselves in a position to not value context and the actual story. And in that is the rub and the opportunity. The sheer size of this country, the sheer amount of spend, even in the separation of wealth, the uncanny amount of attention on YouTube and Instagram in this country leads this to be one of the most interesting places in the world to be a marketer. To be a marketer, to be an influencer, to be a startup. However, when I spent, because I gave a speech in St. Paulo a couple of weeks ago, so about 3 months ago, I started really doing homework on what's the sentiment? What are people saying in the comments? What's the vibe? What's remarkable in such a progressive and incredible country is how much similarities there are, believe it or not, with the US, which is with all that in place, there's still so much cynicism and pessimism to actually achieve it. That is not a government issue with your new president or ours. That is not a problem that you don't have Silicon Valley. That is a problem that people would rather complain than put in the fucking work. That is a human problem. That is a global human problem. If this was 1957 and it was my grandfather and all of your grandparents, I would have some empathy.
Hey, boo-boo.
Because it took real money to actually do what I'm saying. But in 2019, with this, I struggle to deploy empathy for you not doing, which is what led me to not making this a game about your wallet. Many people think business is a game of this. Business is not a game of this. Business right now is a game of this. This has come down to the simple, deep warfare in one's head. What is stopping people from actually making content? And I believe that it comes down to one simple word: judgment.
I don't know if I agree with that, but maybe that's what it is. If you guys have any opinion, definitely leave it in the content, in the captions or the text or whatever these things are called. Gary says that the reason everybody isn't making content is they feel like they don't want to get judged. I think it's a combination of overcoming that, but also really having this fear that what they do will be ineffective and that they're wrong. So those two things in combination are why you're not posting enough and why I'm not posting enough, because we're like, well, is my time better spent posting and telling a story, like building a relationship with people that may or may not choose to partake in this relationship exchange online with me? Or should I be doing it with the typical hustle and grind that we've all been taught you need to do every day for 8 hours, or you're not going to have enough? So that's a tough one. And are you supposed to stop? Gary's answer is you're supposed to do both. Do the hustle and grind to make sure you pay your bills, and then do the extra stuff like posting lots of content so that you communicate with your future clients, your prospects, the world, in a way that is mass communication, but builds that brand. Because everything he's talking about as far as doing content and building content and leaving it on the internet is all about brand building. So it's brand development. It's a way to learn to communicate with everybody.
I believe that judgment is crippling our society. I am fascinated and grateful like you would not imagine, for my mother building self-esteem in me without creating entitlement. My self-esteem allows, when I leave here in a couple of hours and I read the comments and I control copy it and translate it from Portuguese to English, where one of you say that I'm an asshole, I'm okay. I want to give the next talk. I want to make the next piece of content. My ability to deal with losing, pushback, negativity, no, is my strength. My entire model of content production, my entire thesis for this talk only has one major flaw, and that people are insecure. I spend my life putting out content 50, 70, 80 pieces a day with the great hope to eliminate that insecurity, to challenge you and ask you, what judgment? Why? Why are you willing to live a life that ultimately ends with regret and resentment? Because everybody who's 90 and 100 years old talks about the things they wish they did, not the things they did. And so for me, Brazil,
let's leave it at that. What a great way to start our day. I hope you got a little value of this. Remember, you can fast forward, you can rewind, you can listen to stuff. You can also see and just go to this post as it is posted in the text of this post. You can just go watch this video. I highly recommend it. I'm going to leave it right there. I hope you have a wonderful day. Remember to spread some love, spread some joy, say hello to people that you've never said hello to, smile to people with your eyes when you have to wear those masks, so smile extra big so that people know you're smiling. Don't forget to give that comment to your coworker or your leader or your subordinate. Remember to start to notice people's and their gifts. There's so many gifts out there. We all have so much to offer. And I just want us all to remember that and be thankful and remember your gratitude and just share some joy, because it's the one thing that we all can have every single day is just some friendly communication with our neighbors. So love you, Orlando. Have a wonderful day.